Varios vecinos, un inspector del Departamento de Salud, así como agentes de la policía, acudieron a la vivienda, pero Erickson no les dio acceso a la propiedad. Al día de hoy, ninguna agencia ha resuelto el asunto.
In the early morning hours of September 1st, 2023, 15 members of the Puerto Rico police squad kicked down my door in the dead of night before the sun had risen. They came with an illegal search warrant that was never signed by a judge and that stated clearly it must be executed during daylight hours only. They did not knock or announce themselves as required by law, and they far exceeded the scope of their bogus search warrant in going through my home. Here is the original search warrant that was served on me. It is in Spanish. It says clearly it had to be executed during daylight hours. Does this look like daylight hours to you? The only exception would be if a magistrate found compelling reasons why it must be executed in the dark. Can you imagine any compelling reason to execute a search warrant against an animal rescue run by a single lady who lives alone in the pitch dark? Obviously not, because as you can see in the video, they brought their own 10-foot tall construction spotlight to light up my yard because it was much better to have this done during daylight hours. This is the second page of the warrant, which is signed by the police and the prosecutor. It lists what can be seized or taken, and it includes abused cats and related documents, and documents related to breeding and travel certificates. It does not authorize anything pertaining to my personal property.
You can't do
but
that.
In these videos,
Those are not
you
documents
can see
or cats.
one after
Stop
the next
touching my items.
that the police and veterinarians are
search warrant right
repeatedly
here. What
going
does it
through my
say about
personal
going through my
belongings,
medicine?
even though you
Is
can
there a
see through the
section on my
glass doors that there are
medications?
no cats and nothing pertaining to cats in my own private medicine cabinets.
But
Here
those are
is
my
a vet
personal documents.
pulling out
Those have nothing to do with
receipts
cats
for my
or
prescription
anything.
for medicinal cannabis. She's very interested in them. As a veterinarian, shouldn't she be here
Ma'am,
to
the search
examine
warrant
the
doesn't give you
cats
permission
as
to
called
read through
for
my
in the search
medical.
warrant? There is nothing that a veterinarian would be interested in that cabinet.
Those are receipts for my
It is
medicine, not
solely
for cats. That has
my
nothing to do
personal
with
items
cats.
such as medications,
What's it say?
perfumes,
What-
visors, candles, and you can see that right through the
Yeah,
glass
that's me. That's for
doors.
me. You don't have a warrant for that.
I repeatedly tell these people that they are violating the search warrant and read to them what the search warrant says, but they don't care. They continue to violate my rights and go through my own personal belongings. This is several hours later when Captain Jose
Your
Figueroa
warrant is for
Andujar
cat
showed up
documents
on the
and cats.
property.
There's none in the drawers.
He's in
Yard
charge of the
emptied
drug
up.
unit, but he was also in charge of the raid on my property, which he obviously executed as if it were a major drug bust. He had to be quite disappointed to not find any illegal drugs in my possession. Here he is destroying my cabinet, going through my binoculars, going through my class paperwork, and now back into my medicines,
Now you're on
which
plain
are
sight.
of the
You can't dig
utmost
through
concern to
anywhere.
these
You're
police.
exceeding the scope of the warrant.
I was under the impression that they were here to look at animal abuse and to look for evidence of selling and breeding cats and forging veterinary documents. But as you can see, they keep coming back to my personal medicine cabinet. This is the third page of the warrant, which spells out the probable cause needed to search my home. It specifically talks about Maria de Los Angeles Gonzalez. Maria owns a resort about 5 houses away from me, and she has been incessantly harassing me since May of 2022, complaining about my cats and trying to shut down my rescue. In October of 2022, Maria filed a lawsuit against me, trying to get me to shut down my rescue and get rid of my cats. She lost the case, and the judge told her to let the authorities do their job, as she has already been calling the health department and the police on me for many months. In January of 2023, the health department notified her by email that they had investigated her complaints against me, ignoring the instructions of the judge and hell-bent on continuing to harass me. In June of 2023, Maria contacted Tele Once News Channel and organized a protest in front of my house to try, once again, to get my nonprofit cat rescue shut down. Although Maria invited the entire neighborhood to her little protest at my house when I was out of town, only 3 people showed up, along with Melissa Correa, a reporter from Tele Once, who decided to spend the next 3 months, from June until the end of August, creating a series of false news stories against me and my rescue. As you can clearly see from the pictures and video of my house, the 6-foot-tall wooden privacy fence prevents anyone from seeing what's going on under my house. Yet, Maria and her friends told the police in the warrant that they could see cages stacked 3 or 4 high, full of feces, full of cats that are being abused, and all sorts of other false allegations. The police officer who swore out the warrant, Sergeant Ramos, had been to my house numerous times because I'd been burglarized 4 times in the past year. I had nothing to hide from the police. But he also knew that her statements in the warrant were false because he knew I had a 6-foot-tall privacy fence which prevented anyone from seeing in. So Sergeant Ramos knowingly swore out a false search warrant containing false allegations from neighbors that had absolutely no basis in fact or reality. On the next page of the warrant, Sergeant Ramos talks about a health inspector that was at my house in October of 2022, 11 months before this raid. You cannot use any sort of evidence from 11 months ago as probable cause in a search warrant. It's old. It's called stale under the law. The search warrant has to contain fresh, current allegations and evidence. Nonetheless, the health department closed their case against me in January of 2023, 9 months before the raid. So why is Sergeant Ramos putting in the search warrant as probable cause statements from a closed Department of Health investigation that took place a year before the raid and was closed 9 months before the raid? This is completely irrelevant and not any sort of probable cause to get a warrant to search my house. But let's look at those allegations a bit more. The allegations of the health department inspector claimed that I had 50 to 70 cages crammed with cats with not enough room to move and full of feces. If this were true and he observed this back in October of 2022, why didn't they pursue the case against me, and why was it closed in January of 2023? It's because it was completely false. You can see here in the inventory from the day of the raid on my house that when the police took all of my property from my rescue, including all of my cages, they seized a total of 29 metal cages. Those were the cages used to house the cats. There were not 50 to 70 cages as claimed by the health department inspector, nor were they stacked 3 or 4 high as claimed by Maria, nor were they full of feces and filth with too many cats crammed in a cage. All of the allegations made in the search warrant were clearly disproven the day of the raid. Another allegation made in the warrant by Ramos is that I was seen putting metal animal traps in the neighborhood to catch dogs. I did this at the behest of the local police when I was complaining about the feral dogs that would dig under my fence and kill my cats. They told me to trap the dogs and bring them to Villa Michelle Animal Shelter in Mayaguez, which I did. This is not evidence of a crime and is zero probable cause to search my house. Some people may be asking, why, if I am innocent, would the police show up with this search warrant and kick down my door in the middle of the night and take my cats and everything I own? The reason is because the Puerto Rico police have a very long documented history of criminal behavior and corrupt conduct. There's a report from 2011 which actually mentions the specific police captain in charge of the raid on my house. He was a supervisor of an illegal raid in 2009, which got him a $6 million verdict against him in federal civil rights court. This is Captain Jose Figueroa Andujar. And what happened after he got this $6 million verdict against him in 2009? Well, then he went on to do the same thing to his own daughter in 2014, where she alleges that he kicked down her door in the middle of the night with his drug squad and took her children with an illegal ex parte order from the court without following any of the social services required procedures if he were to have concerns about his grandchildren not being cared for properly. Back to my warrant. Here's the next page. Notice the blank lines at the bottom. This is where the declarant, who would be Sergeant Ramos, the one who swore out the warrant and typed up the probable cause, was supposed to appear before a judge and swear to the truth and validity of the contents of this warrant in front of a judge, where he would sign his name and the judge would then sign their name to show that he did this. This is very important. The police cannot just show up with blank unsigned search warrants. They must appear before a judge and swear to the truth of the contents of the warrant to the best of their knowledge. This did not happen here. The next several pages of the warrant essentially repeat the description of my house and other information already reviewed in other sections of the search warrant. And then we get to the final page, perhaps the most important part, where the judge is supposed to sign the search warrant to authorize the search and seizure at my property. Notice the blank lines. This did not happen. This makes this entire search and seizure not only illegal, but also unconstitutional. I need you to share this video. Share it with every politician you know, every news channel you know, every animal rights group in the United States that you know, because this conduct is completely illegal and inexcusable, and over 20 cats are dead as a result. This needs to stop. They need to return my cats to me now, along with the tens of thousands of dollars in other property such as cages, carriers, kennels, medications, records, cash. Everything associated with my rescue was taken that day, and there's been no accountability and no recourse for me to get my animals back. I've not been charged with a crime. I've done nothing wrong. I run a nonprofit animal rescue to save these cats in Puerto Rico, where the government is failing to follow their own laws and protocols to help these animals, and which recently is all over the news because the Puerto Rico government is paying private extermination companies and several actual animal shelters to round up and kill all the cats and dogs from the streets of Puerto Rico. That's how they handle the animal problem. They don't follow their own laws, they violate the rights of the citizens, and there's no accountability. I need your help to change this. This cannot continue. Please help.